With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. And the last story here is, well, it's interesting because Zack Snyder is really trolling Warner Brothers at this point. Like, I want to say, if I'm being honest here, Snyder, wee bit salty. He's a wee bit salty as to the way things played out. Now, look, I get it. You can't get around tragedy, and the tragedy surrounding his daughter is horrific, and it's sad, and it's terrible. And ultimately, it's one of those things where you've got, the business has got to move on, and Zack has got to do his own thing. But people have been really clamoring for the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. And, you keep hearing reports coming out of the movie bloggers. It never existed. That's not how filmmaking works. Don't you know what happened? Don't you read the trades? Don't you read what I write? Well, I mean, we're kind of finding out to an extent that there might actually be some more stuff here. Because clearly Zack Snyder shot the movie. And clearly they put together an assembly cut. And clearly they were working on visual effects for some of these scenes that ultimately never made it into the movie. And clearly there was a lot that was reshot, even though people have tried to downplay how much was reshot. Go back and look. Justice League comes out on home video like March 2nd or something, a month before it gets there. It'll be on digital here very, very, very soon. Go and watch the trailer, the first trailer from Comic-Con 2016, and go and watch the rest of the stuff in the movie and look to see how different Ben Affleck looks. Like, you have thin, fresh off of BVS Ben Affleck, right? And then go and watch Justice League and you've got like, dude, you kind of look like Tim Allen shaved from Santa Claus sort of thing going on, where he's like a puffier Ben Affleck. And there's a clear difference there. Like, and his hair was combed a weird way. It was totally different. And that was all reshoots. And that was like the entire time you see Bruce Wayne on screen. So there's a lot more there that's gone on. Anyway, it says here, the myth of Zack Snyder's original cut in Justice League continues to grow despite there being any real concrete evidence it exists. And now the director is again silently backing a new theory that his cut of the movie was a lot further along than previously thought, fueling the fires even further. Snyder stepped down from the project to spend time with family after the tragedy, and Joss Whedon took over from there. It isn't clear just how much of the movie was complete before Whedon stepped up, but a faction of fans believe it was a lot further along than people initially thought. I am one of those people. I will fully admit. If I'm wrong, I will fully admit that I'm wrong. But look, they shot the whole thing. There was a couple trailers that came out before Joss Whedon came on board. There was a lot more of the movie that was done than we're being led to believe. But at the same time, Warner's is not going to give us that ultimately, because they never completed, like the Zack Snyder cut was never completed. It was probably a lot more than we've been told that was done, but at the same time, it wasn't ever going to, why would they sink another $20-30 million into finishing this cut if it's not going to matter in the long run, which is the sad truth of it, to be honest with you. Now, a new report surfaced this week that suggested Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League was nearly finished before Joss Whedon stepped in. The report cites social media posts that Snyder released while he was working on the movie and paired it with additional information from looking at the concept art designs and comparing them with the finished product. Fans of Justice League and the DCEU were let down by the movie, and its box office performance reflected that. Well, they were let down ultimately by Batman v Superman, the theatrical cut, which was ultimately made insanely better by the extended cut, in my opinion. And then you've got Suicide Squad, which I really liked, but I understand why a lot of people didn't. So there was kind of 2 for 2 in terms of having negative critical responses. And it was over a year until Justice League. Even though Wonder Woman did really well, it still wasn't enough to lead it into Justice League. And that was one of the biggest problems, is that it just failed to do that. And also Thor Ragnarok did better than anyone expected, and it sucked a lot of the air out of the room in regards to Justice League. It's actually one of the things that's going to be happening here in the next couple of years, especially as we start seeing more and more and more big name superhero films coming out. As often as they are, they're going to have to space themselves out well enough in order to not basically impact one another. And that's kind of what I'm taking from the whole Deadpool Star Wars situation. Deadpool 2 moved itself up to being a week before Solo, and as a result of that, they said it was, well, we don't want to be hit with the second week returns of Solo. Well, no, it's the second week returns of Deadpool are going to cut into Solo quite a bit, simply because Deadpool is a more anticipated film than Solo at this point. And here's the thing: we've got trailers for Deadpool. We haven't seen nothing for Solo, which is why I'm bringing that up. Anyway, several fans of Zack Snyder and the DCEU signed a petition to get Snyder's original cut released in some way to see what many believe would be the superior version of the movie before DC and Warner Brothers reportedly tampered with the director's vision. I understand that Joss Whedon very much tried to keep in line, tonally in line with what Snyder did. They are two different filmmakers, and I do give Whedon credit for making the attempt. But just for the sake of the project itself, for the sanctity of the project itself, I would have, if it were me at Warner's, I'd been like, let's delay the movie until March or whatever of 2018, and let's let Snyder finish it once he's done dealing with this tragedy. Give him time to breathe, to do that, to come back and to wrap it up. That to me would have been the better course of action than full steam ahead, which arguably did not do as well as they wanted. So it says that nearly 200,000 people signed the petition. And so here's where we get into the conspiracy theory part of this. So Zack Snyder recently liked a post that linked to the news article and the theory that his movie was a lot further along than the public knew about. Snyder uses social media quite a bit, and his favorite platform is Vero, where he is pretty active, and was during the production of Justice League. This is the second time that we've seen the director silently support the existence of his original cut of the movie after he showed support for the initial campaign to have the movie released. There's been a bunch of reports on the matter, most recently Ben Affleck's stunt double, who claimed that the cut existed and that it was nearly complete. However, the stunt actor has since called the post out to be a fake. Those could always spur your own debates right there. Was it really a fake, or did Warner Brothers tell him to take it down? Very similar arguments can be made over the Mark Hamill comments over Luke Skywalker's portrayal in The Last Jedi. Many people out there look at his comments and they're like, yeah, no, you're telling us what we all thought. And then he comes back with, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Come on, you guys. Come on. Seriously. No, you know how it is. At this point, it's not clear whether Zack Snyder's original cut of Justice League exists in any form. Many believe that there is a rough cut without any special effects, while others tend to believe that it was a lot further along than anybody ever knew about, which supports the theory that Warner Brothers and DC wanted to reshape the movie in order to get younger fans showing up in the movie theaters. Snyder has yet to publicly say anything about his cut, but he makes sure to sit back and likes to sit back and fan the flames. And this is the Vera post here, where Fiona Zhang, by the way, I believe is the person who runs the forsnydercut.org. I don't know if that's her last name, but Fiona is the name of the woman who runs the site. I have contacted her about an interview, and she refused to grant one, which I found to be super interesting because I'm like super freaking sympathetic. But at the same time, I'd understand why she wouldn't, because of the amount of crap that movie bloggers have given fans of the Snyder Cut. She didn't look into my commentary at all being supportive, which is unfortunate, but I get it. I do understand. But here you've got 43 likes, and Zack Snyder is one of them. So that's where we are right now with this. We look at the situation with Zack Snyder. We look at the situation with this particular cut. Does it exist? The answer to that is it doesn't matter. As sad as it is to say, and I am a person who has been very much wanting to see this because I absolutely loved Man of Steel. I absolutely loved the Batman v Superman extended cut. I really wanted to see this final chapter in this trilogy come to fruition. And ultimately, we got it, right? We did. It may not have been the best thing ever, but it was a serviceable, fun movie, and it's one that I'm definitely going to buy when it comes out, and I look forward to owning. It's just sad that we're not going to be able to see this man's vision, because I feel like Snyder gets a lot of crap. And I feel like he took the brunt of all of the shit that was thrown at him after BVS, when it was an executive that trimmed it down to the 2.5 hour long runtime. And I understand why, whatever. But then you've got, the head of Warner Brothers making sure that Justice League was at the 2 hour mark exactly so they could fit in an extra runtime. There's only going to be a 2-minute deleted scene with Superman apparently on the Blu-ray. I mean, Warner's is doing everything they can to eke this film out and just let it go, like just write it off. And it's goddamn Justice League, right? It's goddamn Justice League, and you figure they would care a bit more. And maybe they're put in a situation they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And I get that. But at the same time, I'm still frustrated, and I'm never not going to be frustrated. Because at this point, the DCEU is going in a vastly different direction, and some will like it and some won't. And I think I'll be more happy with it than maybe what we've seen. But it's always that what could have been at the end of the day that's going to bother me. And what could have been the Snyder Cut, I think would have been great. And I think it would have really solidified his vision. And you know what? History is going to look back on his movies, I think, with a bit more kindness than they are right now. And that's my, I guess you could say, my final thoughts on that one.